All right, good afternoon. My name is Mike Zellers. I am the instructor for CISS243, which is Web Database Integration. I'm not going to read you the entire syllabus. You certainly can read it on your own and certainly should read it on your own. I do want to highlight a few things on it, however. As this class is structured a little differently than maybe some of the classes that you have had. First of all, this class is offered under what's called a blended or high flex model. High flex simply means highly flexible. And what that means is that you have a number of options as far as how to attend the lectures in this class. This class is blended insofar as there's one lecture per week that's delivered in person, and the rest of the material is available online for you. And the material online should complement what I cover in the lecture, maybe give you a different perspective. So really, to get the full effect of this class, you ought to listen to the lectures, watch the lectures, and also interact with the materials that are available for you online. As far as viewing the lectures go, you have a few options. The first option, as some of you have done today, is to show up in person for the lecture. The lectures are Tuesday at 1 p.m. in BU 103. So this is one option. You can come and watch the lecture in person. A second option is that you can connect via WebEx, as we see a couple of students are doing here. All right. Excuse me. When you connect via WebEx, you are watching the lecture live and synchronously is how we would put it. And you don't have to physically be on campus. You can watch it from wherever you're available. I'll discuss the respective advantages and disadvantages in a minute here of these different possibilities. The third possibility is that you can watch the lectures asynchronously. That is, you can watch the lectures later on today or tomorrow or whenever as they are posted to YouTube. So each lecture is recorded, and then the recordings are posted to YouTube, and then I will post the link to the lecture on Canvas. In each module, there's a place to post a lecture. The respective advantages and disadvantages: some people prefer to meet face-to-face. Some people get a better connection with the material and with the instructor that way. And certainly you're welcome to do that. Advantage of watching it synchronously, that is watching it on WebEx, is although you're not getting sort of the personal aspect of it, you're not literally in the same room with me, you are watching it synchronously, you are hearing me speak, and you can ask questions in real time. So if anyone has questions, you can raise your hand on WebEx, or you can type in the chat, or you can just turn on your microphone and shout it out. This is awesome. Okay, I appreciate that. And again, this sort of came out over the past few years as sort of as a response to the challenges that we faced as educators. Let me open up chat wherever that is. Here we go. Yeah, it's been so helpful. Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. Most students do enjoy this. And again, it's not like you have to choose the way that you're going to do it and do that for every class session. You can one week show up in person, the next week watch the video recording later on in the day, the next week watch on WebEx. You can sort of tailor it to meet your needs at the time. So for example, if you're not feeling well and you can't make it on campus, or you don't want to come on campus and infect other people, you can then watch it synchronously or watch the recording later on. If your job changes and you have to work during this time frame, or you change shifts on your job or something along those lines, you get another job, you can choose a different format for watching them. You could watch them after the fact as opposed to attending in class or watching them synchronously. The advantage of showing up in person, again, some people like that personal aspect of it, of being in the same room and all that. The advantage of watching it synchronously is you can ask questions in real time and get answers. The advantage of watching it asynchronously after the fact is the ultimate flexibility. So you can watch it anytime, and you still have the opportunity to ask questions by emailing me those questions, but it won't be synchronously. In other words, if you ask me a question and I answer within the next day or so, you might have a follow-up question based on what I say, and we might go back and forth a little bit. Sometimes those exchanges work better in person, but I will still answer your questions online if you email me the questions. The labs work in a similar way, with a couple twists about this class that make the labs a little bit different than some of the other CISS classes. This is my lab/office hours schedule here. All of these correspond to lab hours of different courses, but I open up all of my labs to all of my students. So in other words, you're not limited to only coming to lab Tuesday 2 to 3 p.m. You can come to one of these other lab sessions, and other people and other classes can come during our lab session. I teach small enough classes where it's not really been a problem inviting people like this. It's not like I have students that I'm not able to address their questions during lab. Sometimes you might have to wait a minute if I'm helping out another student, but I can get around to addressing all the questions during that. And you can visit the lab either in person in today, BU 210, Mondays 10 to 11, BU 102, or you can dial in via WebEx to the lab session. So you have the two options there too. You can also work on the labs on your own time. In fact, you probably will spend, even if you show up for labs, you probably will spend some of your time working on the labs on your own. And if you have questions, you're welcome to email me, but there's a few considerations I want to cover that are important here, and that will help you get a better answer quicker than you might otherwise. First of all, zip up all your files and attach it to your email message. So if you're having problems with, say, a Razor page, which we will be working with Razor pages, don't just send me that page, send me the entire project, because these have interactions between the different files and links between them. It's very difficult to just pull one file out of it and email that to me. These projects will be in a given directory. Just zip up the entire directory and email them to me. All right. Email them to me in Canvas email, because I cannot accept zip files, unfortunately, through regular LC mail. So send via Canvas. Give a complete and specific description of your issue. Telling me your program is broke is not specific and detailed, all right? Don't make me go into detective mode where I have to guess what your problem is, all right? Tell me, I go to add a customer to the database and I get this error message. Or I go to add a customer to the database and I press the add button and nothing happens and they're not added to the database. Something along those lines. A complete description. Include screenshots if you think it will make it more meaningful to you. Those can be very beneficial as well. Send them to me as an email message. Do not upload assignments to the Dropbox unless it's ready to be graded. All right? That's important. And it's important in terms of getting you a timely answer to your questions, because I answer my email daily. All right. You know, at worst, if you send me an email, say, after I've sort of checked out for the day, if you sent me one, say 7 p.m., at worst, you'd have to wait till tomorrow till I make my email rounds to get an answer. All right. If you post your questions in the Dropbox, then I will only see those questions the next time I go to grade. And typically, I make a grading pass once a week through the courses to grade them, which means you might wait a week to get your answer, which isn't good. You should get your answers as soon as possible, and you'll do that by sending me emails that way. Also, only submit to the Dropbox if you're ready to be graded. All right. So if you're having problems with an assignment and it's not complete, all right, don't submit it to the Dropbox. Again, send me a message with it. I would, even if that takes you a little bit past the deadline, I would prefer that you turn something in past the deadline, but correct, as opposed to rushing to get something in by the deadline that is not correct or that is not complete. So I encourage you to ask the question in that case if it's not correct, even if it means going late. I have no problem giving full credit on late work if I've been working with the person, if the person meets me halfway. So if you are having trouble with an assignment, and let's say the assignment is due tomorrow, and you send me an email saying, I can't get this to work, I'm not sure why. Send me the files, tell me exactly what's going on with it. And we might have a little bit of an exchange emails. It might take a day or two for that to happen, and that may cause you to turn in something late. I will not deduct for that because we've been in communication, and you've met me halfway, and I understand why it's late, and I understand that it's late because you wanted to get it right, and I'm not going to penalize for that. Likewise, if, for example, you had to work a double shift on a given day and you're not able to get the assignment done, or, you know, you were ill and you weren't able to work on the computer during that period of illness or whatever. You don't have to go into details if it's a personal problem. I don't need a doctor's excuse. I don't need details about a personal problem that you have. Just touch base with me. That's all I ask. And I think that's a pretty minimal requirement. And if you do that, I won't penalize you with late points. The kind of assignments I penalize with late points are when students simply disappear from view, whereas I don't hear from them, and then 2 weeks from now, I get lab 1 turned in, all right, or 3 weeks from now, or 10 weeks from now. And you might think I'm exaggerating, but that is sometimes the case. At the end of the semester, I'll get people just starting to turn in all the labs, thinking that they can get everything done in the last 3 weeks of class that they ignored throughout the whole semester. It happens, you know. Then I reserve the right to deduct if people simply just start dropping in and emailing, and I haven't been in touch with them, and I don't know, I don't have a good reason for things being late. Now, that being said, don't allow my flexibility to be a crutch, all right? In other words, getting your assignments in on time, especially if they prove out to be correct, all right, is a good indication that you're doing pretty well in the class. So if you're getting things due, turned in on time when they're due, and if you're getting full credit, then you can rest easy knowing that you're doing pretty well. If you turn in something late once in a while, chances are you're probably okay too. If, however, you start habitually turning things late and the lateness grows and it becomes longer and longer, the first one's a day late, the next one's 3 days late, and so on, that's a sign that something needs to change, all right? And it could be that you need to spend more time working on the material. It could be that you need to talk with me to go over some gaps in your understanding. the bottom line is if you start falling behind consistently, then you should take action. And the first step of taking action would be to talk to me. You know, I've had arrangements with students that have fallen behind where I meet with them individually once a week, you know, and until we get them back on track. And again, although those times that I have listed there are my official office hours, lab hours, I am available very flexibly throughout the rest of the week. If you need to meet with me and you can't make one of these scheduled times, let me know and give me a choice of a few different times. You know, that will expedite things, you know. Say, look, I need to talk to you about lab 2. Here's the files for lab 2. All right. I can meet you Wednesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. Give me some times to choose from, and I can just about guarantee I'll be able to connect with you at one of those times. All right. But again, send the code, because it very well might be something like you forgot a semicolon or something like that. So maybe you basically understand it, but your syntax is slightly off. All right. And so I am available at times other than the scheduled times. Any questions about this? All right, let's go on to the material. I have at least one student that was in the morning's lecture, so this is partly going to be a repeat, but we're going to branch off in a different direction than we did this morning. Now, what happens when you request for a web page? And what do I mean by request a web page? I mean, you've done probably one of 3 things. You've probably typed in the URL. That's one possibility. You've clicked on a link that takes you to another page. That's a second possibility. Or a third possibility is maybe you typed in data into a form and press submit. Those are probably 3 of the most common ways you can request a page. All right. In website terms, you are the client. You are the client that is making requests through the internet. And the server is responding. To requests. And the internet and all the protocols associated with the internet and the domain name server and all those good things, their job is to make sure that your request goes to the right server and that server's response goes to the right client, which the web does, right? If you type in www.google.com, provided you've typed in the address correctly, you're going to go to the Google server. All right. You're not going to end up at Sears' server or Kmart or whatever. I don't know, Sears and Kmart even exist anymore? Maybe I'm dating myself. At any rate, in addition, if you search for HTML, the response that Google gives you is going to be a page with links about HTML. You're not going to get a response back that shows you, you know, Italian restaurants in New York or something like that. Now, the response that the server gives you is comprised of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. CSS or HTML is the content of the page. CSS is the appearance and layout of the page. JavaScript is the behavior. So if I request this page, HTML is all these links, navigation, the sidebar, the headings, all these things. The CSS says put this in a little shadow around it. Make this purple, make this orange, make this green. Make this blue and the text white. That's CSS's job. JavaScript behavior, for the most part, is to change the appearance or content of the page without going back to the server. So JavaScript here says, hey, display that menu or hide that menu. Likewise, if we go to Google, if I start typing HTML, it will show me a list of these things, and it actually adds content to the page. It's not just the appearance that changes. So that's enough about client-side stuff. We focus more on client-side stuff through the first part of CISS242. In this class, we're focused on the server stuff. The server's job is responding to a request. And the simplest sort of request that the server can get is a request for static pages. A static page is a page that's written in HTML that doesn't change no matter what. All right? Maybe if I let me search for a mom and pop restaurant in Elyria area. Blue Sky Restaurant. This is not a paid endorsement, by the way. I do eat there from time to time, though. All right, if you look at this, this is a static page. What do I mean by that? I mean that if I go onto it and you go onto it, it's going to look the same for us. Doesn't matter what time of the day we go. It doesn't matter what our location is if we go to this website. It doesn't matter if we access it via a Mac or a PC. All right. It's static. And static in this context means unchanging. Now, a lot of sites on the web, when it was first created, were like this. They would call it brochureware. All right. In other words, it's just kind of like an electronic brochure. It's not like really an application. If I click the menu, I can see the menu. And so on. Now, today, most of the sites we go to are not static sites. Most of the sites we go to today are dynamic. And what does dynamic mean in this context? It means it changes based on something. Let me give you an example. You log into Canvas, I log into Canvas. If you looked at our URLs, they would look very similar. However, you're going to see the courses that you're enrolled in. I'm going to see the courses that I teach. What's more, if I go to, say, the CISS243 course, me as the instructor can do things that you can't. I can add assignments. I can grade assignments. You as a student in the class can't add or delete, more than likely, assignments. More likely than what you'd want to do would be to delete an assignment. And you're not allowed to grade assignments either. So even we go to the same page, yet the results looks different. And it looks different depending on the credentials of the person that logged in. Now, there's other ways that a site could be dynamic. Let's go back to Google, Google, and let's search for Italian restaurants. And as you notice, you get one in Sheffield, you get one in Elyria, you get one in North Ridgeville. Best Italian restaurants in Elyria, best Italian restaurants near Elyria, Elyria Midway Wall, Olive Garden, which there's one in Elyria, and so on. Now, does that mean all the best Italian restaurants in the world are in Elyria? No. It means that this page is dynamic, the search result page. It considers not just what I typed in. That's one way the page is dynamic, right? This Google result page, I'm calling the same page. I get different results if I search for Italian restaurants versus Asian restaurants. And I'd get different results still if I search for them in Lorraine or Elyria, or if I search for them in New York City. So the output of this page changes depending on any number of factors. If you're on a Mac versus PC and you search for software, all right, you're liable to get on a Mac different recommendations than if you're on Windows. All right. If you go to your Amazon account, your suggested items are going to be different than my suggested items, and so on. You go to Facebook, your what's that called? Your feed page is going to look different than mine because it's going to show the activity of your friends versus my friends, and so on. These pages are dynamic. In other words, their content changes depending on something. And it could change based on where you're searching from or where you're accessing from. It could change versus who you are logged on as, your identity. It could change versus depending on the kind of platform you're on Mac or PC, an iPhone or an Android. It could change based on the time of day that you search. All right. Go to, for example, I don't know, HBO's website, and it will show you what's on now. Come back in the evening, it's going to show you what's on that evening. So the same page, the results vary though. Those are dynamic pages. Means that they change. And clearly we need more than HTML to accomplish this. I assume you've all been through CISS243, the web development class, and there was nothing in that class that told us how to make a dynamic page. All the pages we made in that were plain HTML and were static. All right. Good first step in learning web development, but to truly be a modern web developer, you need more than that. Okay. So these dynamic pages are not in HTML. What are they in? Well, there's choices here. ASP.NET. JSP, Java servlets. I'm running out of space to write. I'll just say them. PHP, Ruby on Rails, any number of different server-side platforms. So let's Google server-side languages. So there's probably some I'm forgetting. PHP, Python. You can use JavaScript for server-side scripting as well. Java, Perl, HTML doesn't really count. C#, and so on. It lists PHP, Node.js, which is JavaScript-based, Python, Ruby, Java, Golang, and ASP.NET and C#. Pretty good summary of the top server-side scripting languages. They all, however, have the same thing in common, have some characteristics in common, and that is they're not plain HTML. They might include HTML as part of the script, but the script contains, or it can contain, more stuff rather than HTML. Let's look at an example PHP page. Okay. Pretty basic example, the typical hello world example. Notice it's HTML, but there's some extra stuff in there. That's PHP code. And all this really does is outputs hello world. But again, this is another one. You could put this in your HTML page and it would output some of the settings in your PHP installation. Typically, these languages need to be installed on the web server. Web servers automatically know HTML, but web servers need to be taught to understand these other languages. So you need to install PHP or Perl or ASP.NET or whatever. They all do the same thing. They take a script, they process a script, and the output they produce is the same old thing that we got with static pages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Maybe some other stuff, but these are the main things. Think of it like this. Think of it if you go to lunch at McDonald's versus you go to lunch at Subway. If you go to lunch at McDonald's and you order something, a Big Mac, they're just going to pick a Big Mac from the bin and just give it to you, right? Because the Big Macs are made in advance and they're in a bin and they're delivered to you. If you go to Subway, however, you can customize your sandwich a lot more. Again, not a paid endorsement, although I eat at Subway every day that I'm on campus. You can customize it. You can choose your bread. You can choose what meat you want, if any. You can choose what cheese you want, if any. You can choose vegetables, whether it's toasted or not toasted, sauces to put on it, whatever. And that sandwich didn't exist before you ordered it. It was made on the fly just for you. Same thing here. The web server takes these scripts and creates. The output of these scripts are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The platform we're going to use in this class is ASP.NET and C#. And the specific technology we're going to use, at least initially through most of the class, are what are called Razor pages. And your first assignment is to create a page that contains information about a number of technologies that we have in this class. So you'll create an HTML page for information about ASP.NET Web Forms, ASP.NET MVC, and ASP.NET Core. Now, and you'll just create an HTML page if you want. So this doesn't have to be a Razor page or anything fancy. Just make a professional looking HTML page if you want. If, however, you want to try out Razor pages, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of them now. Now, if you don't feel like tackling this on your own, don't worry about it. We'll have plenty of time to practice these, and I'll go over them a lot more. But I do want to introduce you to how Razor pages work and how you would create one. So, in fact, I think the second assignment is to convert these to Razor pages. So only needs to be one HTML page. I'm going to go to Visual Studio. I'm assuming you all know this to some amount. I'm going to talk about the impact of this as far as creating web applications. Go up here, File, New, Project. Now, Visual Studio is used for a lot of different stuff. All right, a lot of different stuff. So you have to say what kind of stuff you want to make in this project. And what we are going to be making in this class are ASP.NET for web applications. And we're going to get a project template for creating an ASP.NET Core application with example ASP.NET Razor pages. So this is going to make, you know, sort of an empty website that we can then go and expand. So I'm going to click this. I'm going to click Next. We got to give a name for it. Please give it a name other than Web Application 1. Give it a name that means something. So I'll say Lecture Example 1. Location. There's a place where by default it will put it, or you can change it to put it wherever you like. I'm going to put it on the desktop simply because that makes it easy to find and show you. Okay. Put solution and project in the same directory. I'm going to say yeah to that. I'm going to click Next. It does its thing. Oh, no, it doesn't do its thing. You have to answer a few more questions. What version of the framework do you want? Pick .NET 6.0. That has long-term support. Authentication type. Our first examples, we're not going to require you to log on to do things. Therefore, we're going to choose none as the authentication type. Configure for HTTPS, yes. Enable Docker, you don't have to worry about, and so on. And then I will create. Now it does its thing. And it gives us a blank project. All right, we can see the contents of that project over here. We go out and look. There's a bunny again. I swear it's the second class in a row there's been a bunny out there nibbling grass. It looks like the same one too. Little tiny one. Maybe you're not as excited as that as I am. My daughter used to have a bunny, so I like bunnies. All right. Are there any questions about bunnies? No, just kidding. If we look out on the desktop, there it is, the folder Lecture Example 1. So if you're working on this and you had a problem with this, let's say it was your lab, you would right mouse, zip it up, send to compressed file, and then you would include this with your email message through Canvas. Don't just go in and pick maybe a page that you're having problems with. Give me all of the files. All right. We can actually run this example and see the templates that it created for us. So I could run lecture example. It's going to give me a couple of questions. Just answer yes. It's going to do its thing. And it's going to open this up on a development server. And I am going to get this error. And I don't know why I got that. I tried this earlier today and did not have this problem, I swear. Okay, so go. Hope I remember the setting for this. Google this real quick. Chrome show secure. Still not secure. Chrome/flags. Wow. And there we go. All right. Now, what do we get? We get a home page. It has just a little welcome question. We get a privacy page that you can use to put your privacy messages on. All right, cool. What if you want to change one of these? For example, you probably would want to take and change your home page for your assignment. So what you would do is you'd go under pages, and your page actually consists of two parts. Every page has a CSS_HTML page and a CSS_HTML/CS page. The CSS_HTML contains the HTML sort of souped up with some server-side code that you can insert in there. And the CS is any C# code that you have, like if you had to execute formulas or save to a database or whatever. So if we're going to change just the HTML, which you only should have to do for this first assignment, I would open up this. And so I could put in here any HTML I wanted. And I could now run it. And that change is made. Now, if you notice, there's not a lot of HTML in this file. That's because part of the file, part of that web page comes from this, part of it comes from this layout.cshtml. How do we know that? Because see something. I guess because we didn't override it. The layout's going to come from there. So really, layout CSS_HTML is most of the HTML to the page. Because if you remember, if you look at any website, there's sort of a shell that pages have in common. And each specific page just sort of fills in the blanks in that shell. And if you notice here, render body is where we put in the code from our individual web page. So we're going to have this div class container, and render body is going to be where we put in the code from index.cshtml. So if we run this again and view source, all this stuff up to here comes from layout.html or CSHTML. This stuff here contains from index CSHTML, and the rest of the stuff also comes from layout. So this simply allows us to have a common shell of the web page, which we want, all right, and yet be able to vary parts of the web page for each specific web page that we're going to deal with. So that's how you could use this. You could go and you could put all your stuff in index CSHTML, because you don't want it on every page, you just want it on that one page. And you should be in business. Now, how do you go back into this after you have exited Visual Studio? You can go in here and you can either double click on the solution or the project. And then you're taken back in. And you can go and make whatever changes you want. We will go over this more in detail next time. And in fact, each subsequent class, we go more into detail about what you can do on Razor pages. Are there any questions now? Either in person or remotely. Okay, that's what I have for today. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will see you next week.